Hi, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. This is Robert Murray with Inspire Nation. And I got my friend Sensei here. He's a professor. He's going to be helping me lay this out so it's easy for everybody. There's so much controversy right now on this whole COVID thing. And I never have really been talking about this on my show yet because I just want to ease into it and I don't want to be pushing any boundaries too much too quick. So the first topic I want to do and chip away at today is the PCR test and how accurate that is, because they're getting their counts for the COVID, for everything to do with the COVID deaths and everything results from this PCR test. And so, Sensei, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Just to give you some background on me, I'm coming in as
Perfect.
a professor. I am anonymous at this point because, unfortunately, a lot of people who marry their own identity to their job and then want to have their own individual opinions will lose that job. And we're in such a censorship point. I think that's clear for everybody to see. Social media is towing the line of some sort of narrative, whether it's scientific or not. It's pontificated by the political class, and you can lose your job. So that's why I'm anonymous here, but I've been studying this for 20 years in terms of the field of esoterica and in general, this space that we're speaking in healthcare. And I would love to contribute. Thanks for having me on, Robert.
Yeah, man, no problem. So I ran into Sensei here on Clubhouse. I hang out on Clubhouse. That's where I get all my information. I don't watch the news. I talk to thousands of different people that are actually living it in real time. And even though that we're in touch with so many people from all around the world, there's still a division. There's still this does the PCR test work? Does it not work? And it causes even issues within my little group of people that we usually don't have conflicts for. So I wanted do you know about the PCR test? Have you heard about the PCR test and the accuracy of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot about the PCR test, and just a little caveat in terms of Clubhouse, why that is an important place where you can discuss and get information. It's become the new town hall a lot of social medias have, but this is one that doesn't have as much censorship, if any at all. And so you're not in an echo chamber in Clubhouse. You're actually paying attention to all viewpoints, different news from around the world, and different people. And so you're essentially, you get to see all the news, which is what you should be doing, right? I don't want you to only listen to a CNN or only listen to this. So what Robert is suggesting is listen to all things and then make a determination. And that's what we're attempting to do today, right? Let's listen to the leader, the creator of the PCR test, and kind of look at that. If you're looking at the creator of the PCR test, it's pretty simple. What you find very quickly when you research this, the inventor is Carrie B. Mullis, invented the PCR test, and it's being used for COVID-19. He died suddenly in August in 2019. But he did invent the PCR. It's a process to use to find genetic material on a microscopic scale. It's not a process, in his words, to be used to determine disease or infection. And what we mean by that is there are trillions of viruses in the biome of any particular human being, that you'll find genetic material for tons and tons of different bacteria and viruses in your around your biome. But what the PCR attempts to do is show you that genetic material at a particular cycle. And if you turn that cycle up quite a bit, you can find generally anything. And that's what the creator of the PCR test was saying. It is not supposed to be used for the diagnoses and prognostication of a disease.
That's kind of what I've heard too. And I've got a couple of videos here. They're short. And if you don't mind, I guess I could play these videos real quick and then we can keep going after that. Is that all right?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Then I'm just going to play these videos and my crowd knows that I'm still learning. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm actually sharing a video. I'm sharing my laptop screen, which is pretty awesome. So that's the one. Share, and here we go, y'all. Okay, this is the owner. He invented the PCR test.
And it turned out that nobody knew it. And I was getting really freaked about that. That's when I first started saying, they don't know. Nobody really knows. This whole thing is a big sham.
Mullis pointed out how the CDC was losing money and how the HIV/AIDS connection brought their profits back in the black. and how the men at the highest levels were all in on it. Kerry Mullis knew these men were dangerous.
They don't want people like me walking up and asking them those kind of questions, and they're willing to go to great lengths to prevent that. They're out on a limb. I wouldn't want to be there with them.
But he was still outspoken. When ABC's Nightline approached him about doing a documentary on his work, Mullis convinced them to cover the HIV debate after nearly a decade of ignoring it. In a 1994 interview with Celia Farber for Spin magazine, Kerry Mullis expressed how he really wanted to expose Anthony Fauci and Robert Gallo. He said that he'd be willing to chase the little bastard from his car to his office, a Nobel Prize winner trying to ask a simple question from those who spent $22 billion and killed 100,000 people. It has to be on TV. I'm not unwilling to do something like that. Unfortunately, not many people were listening back then. And on August 7th, 2019, just about 3 months before the first utterance of COVID-19, Kerry Mullis, age 74, a Nobel Prize winner, inventor of the PCR test, a man who was once willing and eager to expose Anthony Fauci, quietly died of pneumonia. The timing of it all is mysterious to many of us.
Awesome. So that was the first video there. And let's go ahead and play the second one. They just kind of can go together here. It's even shorter. And bear with me, guys. I got to take this one right away from the screen and then share the other video. It's kind of fun. I'm learning it. Like, this is the first time really like this. So pretty good, Robert.
Great videos.
Awesome. So we'll try. This one must be the other one right there. Let me make sure that it's going to work. I think it's that one. Yeah, okay. Now, bear with me. This might, hopefully this isn't the same one. Okay.
And it turned out that nobody
okay.
knew it.
We'll do it again.
And I was getting really freaked
Learning process.
about that. That's when I first started saying, they don't know.
Yeah, so if you want, I can kind of break down what he was
Sure,
saying.
great.
Yeah, so essentially, we have a couple instances of this. You have Dr. Robert Malone, analogous to this gentleman who invented the PCR test. Dr. Robert Malone and was a core architect. Okay, he didn't solely invent, but was a core architect of the mRNA vaccine. And so, in both cases, two key components. One, the FDA and the CDC had already turned their back on, which is now the PCR test. There were rumors which were dismissed initially months ago, and we see this constant pattern. These rumors in this case was that the PCR test could not distinguish the difference from the cold, the flu, in other words, and coronavirus. And so because of that, a lot of these coronavirus COVID positive PCR results were thrown into question. And of course, that's very disruptive to the main narrative, the main plot, because we're supposed to know what we're doing. And we're certainly losing certain rights under these pretexts of science and accuracy. But when you have people who are COVID positive being taken to camps in Australia, this is verifiable, incontrovertible fact to anybody who can use a search engine. And you have people trying to escape from these camps in Australia, getting fined $5,000. You have people not being able to enjoy vacations because of these tests, and to learn that finally it's proven, and the FDA has admitted now in late 2021 that yes, we're doing away with the PCR test, we're coming up with something different. And the detractors will tell you, no, it's something, there's a different reason they're coming up with a new test with variants, so on and so forth. No, this is from the inventor of the PCR. They cannot have more authority on it and credibility on it. This is a detractor from Fauci, who himself has now been proven out. The rumors turned to reality. The zoonotical window of finding out when the origin bat that supposedly this came from in a wet market in Wuhan. That window was, I believe, up 7 to 11 months. And if you haven't found the zoonotical origin, you're really in murky territory, and we have not. And so for him to be the sole person pushing that, meaning Dr. Fauci, when it's his money, his $600,000 to EcoHealth through Peter Daszak, that was funding this very lab with our tax money, all the while doing maximum pain experiments on beagles. I love beagles, the cutest dogs. This is not a theory, okay? This is admitted fact. It shows extremely reprehensible behavior. This was against President Obama's orders, by the way. There was supposed to be no gain of function, against President Trump's orders. So no matter which side of the spectrum, Dr. Fauci acted in a federalist position, not a, apolitical or Republican Democrat position. It was a very federalist, communist position of, I don't care about the president's edicts. I am science is his latest rhetoric. And he's been very duplicitous. He said masks don't work. He said he lied about that. It admitted he was using deception as a tool in his arsenal to, I quote, control human behavior. And so is this a man we really want to trust giving $600,000 or any amount of money to Wuhan? He has perjured himself federally in court as of today multiple times, doubling down on the fact that he didn't do gain of function when he has funded gain of function to the tune of billions, and the most in history, mind you, cavorting with someone who the media was clueless as to why there was so much hate for. We were being gaslit, Bill Gates, and his reputation that he's garnered, deservedly. But now apologist Anderson Cooper, even though his wife, Bill Gates' wife, divorced him for being best friends with Epstein, we are still gaslit about how we need to apologize for questioning Bill Gates' moral character as he spends another $300 million, as Joe Rogan pointed out, in media, funding the media. And he is a purporter of this vaccine, which, Peter McCullough, Dr. McCullough, the biggest, cardiologist in the world, and the most published, by the way, who worked with the FDA and the NIH, lobbying for early treatment, which we know if we listened to him instead of doing what we did, we would have saved millions in terms of just in general around the world. But there's so many facts. I don't want to go on too much and digress. But
Right.
The answer is absolutely. The PCR is a huge, huge problem. It's being done away with.
I appreciate you being curt with that, because there's a bunch that I'm not going to be going over too much right now in this video, because the gain of function and stuff like that, I have other recordings and stuff we'll go over to explain that the vaccine was was manufactured 20 years ago, and they've had the vaccines for the coronavirus and for the spike protein and this and that. But I'm not showing that credibility right now. Right now, today, our point is just for my viewers' sake, because the PCR test doesn't test for the coronavirus, every single one of the cases and deaths from it are completely invalid, all of them. So when they say these deaths are corona deaths, no, they're not. They haven't tested for the coronavirus. They can't isolate the virus, but that's also a different. So I'm looking at the numbers, the people that are supposedly died in Alaska and supposedly died in different states and in the U.S. from COVID, based on getting positive results from the PCR test, which is invalid. And so I'll play this last little video here, and then we can comment some more. Thank you. If you're watching, go ahead and comment in the comments, and I'll get back to you. I'm only on YouTube comments, so if you're visiting me on Facebook or LinkedIn, I don't have that. Oh, hey, Kenneth. Yay, Kenny T. He's so cool. He always says, savor the flavor. He savors the flavor and the awesomeness of us because he's cool. I love you, Kenny. Thank you for always being a supporter. So we'll throw his thing up so people can see. Yeah, that's right. Look, Kenny, I'm still learning. All right, cool. We're going to play this last video here. And then I kind of stole Sensei here from Clubhouse. He's actually honoring a good friend of mine there on her club, talking the truth. And sometimes it doesn't go as far as you want to. I'm still getting people questioning the simple fact. PCR test doesn't test for the virus. That's the truth. We can argue about that later, but we shouldn't have to. We should be able to get past that on to the next one after this show. So, Kenny, I love you. What does it say? I received a notification that your show is on today. Well, I'm sorry. I just said it like 2 hours ago. Love you for being here, Kenny. Okay, we're gonna play this other video now. All right. Share. That one right there. Okay.
If you were anything like
misuse PCR to estimate all these supposed free viral RNAs that may or may not be there.
I think misuse PCR is not quite. I don't think you can misuse PCR. No, the results, the interpretation of it. See, if you can say, if they could find this virus in you at all, and with PCR, if you do it well, you can find almost anything in anybody. It starts making you believe in the sort of Buddhist notion that everything is contained in everything else, right? I mean, because if you can amplify one single molecule up to something that you can really measure, which PCR can do, then there's just very few molecules that you don't have at least one single one of them in your body. Okay? So that could be thought of as a misuse of it, just to claim that it's meaningful. It is. There's very little of what they call HIV, and what's been brought out here by Phil Pott and Isai already. The measurement for it is not exact at all. It's not as good as our measurement for things like apples. An apple is an apple. You know, you can get something that's kind of like, if you got enough things that look kind of like an apple, you stick them all together, you might think it's an apple. But and HIV is like that. Those tests are all based on things that are invisible, and the results are inferred. PCR is separate from that. It's just a process that's used to make a whole lot of something out of something. That's what it is. It doesn't tell you that you're sick, and it doesn't tell you that the thing you ended up with really was going to hurt you or anything like that.
Okay, so that was just the reason I just did that was to just reiterate so we can get past the, we shouldn't have any more arguments about who's the most credible talking about what the PCR test does, because that was Terry Mullis. He created the PCR test, and he's saying himself, no, it doesn't test for the virus, and he ended up, getting he died, right? Like just like, oh my gosh, yeah, like 3 months before COVID. So there you go. I'm gonna remove this from the screen, and are you still there, Mr.
Yeah, sure. It's Sensei. It's essentially Sensei with a Z. And to reiterate in a layman's terms, what the gentleman was saying who invented the PCR test, who is the highest authority on it. He's saying that if you use the correct cycle, you zoom and magnify to measure these, what are normally to the naked eye invisible forces that can kill us if infected, to the degree where the pathogen is making you at dis-ease, you're no longer in ease, right? then yes, there's a problem, there's infection. But you have cancer cells in you right now, which the PCR can run, we can see, we can blow up one cancer cell. Does that mean now that cancer cell by your spleen, now we're going to amputate your spleen because of that one cancer cell that could be totally innocuous and benign? No. So he's saying, he even references the Eastern mystical tradition of Buddhism, of we're all one, right? He references that and says, science is almost proving a certain aspect of spirituality through quantum physics, quantum entanglement, and the double slit experiment, which you guys can look into. Just double slit experiment on YouTube. It proves, your thoughts do have an effect on reality. And the morphology of reality, due to a conscious observer looking at a particle, can determine whether it expresses as a particle or a wave in a particular double slit experiment. So you can look into that. But science is explaining religion more and more, and spirituality. And that's what he's saying. He's saying we have a lot, trillions of different, what I said initially at the beginning of your cast, is that we have trillions of different viruses and things within our body, all sorts of space dust and things you wouldn't believe. And yes, we can detect that with certain tests. It doesn't mean that we're suffering from those particular viruses, coronaviruses, which there are many kinds. And we might have just a small amount and totally innocuous. That's what he's saying.
Thank you so much. And so we're just going to keep this kind of short and sweet, and I'm going to do mini segments. And I definitely am inviting you If you'd like to come on tomorrow, if you're available, we could go into more deeper about the vaccines, and I'll have a better setup here. So I
Of
know people are
course.
going to want to hear about that.
Yeah,
You
we'll
are
definitely set up another time to have me on for sure. I love being on. I love your cast, your movement, your energy. It's a beautiful thing you're trying to do, man. I really respect it, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm in Alaska. Those that don't know me, I'm 250 miles away from the nearest stoplight. I'm living on 80 acres in a free-range homestead property here that my grandpa homesteaded in the 60s. We're not in the bureau. There's no taxes on it. I'm not affected by the mandates as much as everybody else because I don't see people. They're not going to be forcing me to wear a mask, and they're not going to be forcing me to get any kind of jabs. And so I'm just blessed to have been able to have stepped back here and be able to have this time to run a free platform. I picked up my iPhone 6. So that was just really exciting. So Sensei, thank you so much. I'll be talking with you on Clubhouse. Anything else you'd like to say or shout out to?
Yeah, brother. Shout out to you. Shout out to the
Awesome.
universe. Shout out to Lou's Room. Shout out to everybody out there trying to make a difference and trying to reiterate our mantra. We are all one. There are so many timelines that can come out, so many realities that can come from these times. We've been bottlenecked into these times where we have access to the internet. We can look at different ideas. And so I guess on a final note, I would say utilize this time very wisely because a lot's happening. And we can either rocket off into an independent humanity of thinking, a critical thinking humanity who does stand up for truth, stands against censorship, and stands up for freedom. We can win back a reality unlike you've ever believed with technology waiting in the wings. And so thank you so much, Robert, having me on here.
I'm so excited because it's been eating me up. I want to do something. And so this is what everybody can do. If we want real narratives pushed, if we want the truth, obviously we're going to have to do it ourselves. So let's do it. Let's stay together and not be divided.
Let's
All right.
seize the future. Thank you, brother.
Yes. Thank you so much. All right.
Awesome.
You can hang out. I'll be in the studio.
All right. Bye-bye. Namaste.